The captain had a beautiful face. Exquisite, really. Her skin was a flawless chocolate brown mocha and looked as smooth as butter. Sebastian could envision touching it, caressing her. He shook his head and lifted his glass to get the waitress's attention for another drink. Clearly, he was taking his interest in the captain too far. Clearly. When his waitress delivered his second drink, Sebastian picked it up and took a hearty swig. He had to get his head back on straight because the captain was messing him up, and he hadn't even spoken to her yet. Francesca had no problem entertaining those who sat at her table as winners. Their conversation was interesting, and they kept her on her toes. Frankie was aware that there were other people around her. Some were interested in her interaction with the winners, while others were blissfully ignorant. Still, every now and then, Francesca felt eyes on her that did not waver. Even after continuing to dine and chat with her guests, Frankie felt those eyes on her again. It wasn't an uncomfortable feeling, but it did make Francesca curious. She at least wanted to see who paid her so much attention, but Frankie didn't want to be totally obvious. Francesca remained engaged in the conversation at her table, and then lifted her glass to her lips, taking a sip while looking in the direction of the eyes she felt. It didn't take her long to determine who it was either, because Sebastian was looking at her as she looked at him. She stopped sipping, even though Frankie hadn't immediately lowered the glass. She was stunned, pleasantly stunned, by the eyes that looked back at her. They had a moment when time absolutely stood still, and everything in the background faded to absolute black. It was just Francesca and Sebastian, their eyes meeting and a soul connection being formulated. Sebastian held her gaze even though he was tempted to disconnect. But there was something that kept him from doing that. Francesca felt her heart skip a beat as she lowered her gaze, her eyes softening in response to his unwavering gaze. And then Sebastian smiled. Francesca smiled, too.